Welcome to Nerd Index. I have my husband with me.
Hello.
And in a previous video, we talked about our most favorite anime of all time, the kind of shows that will never be dethroned from the top spots in our hearts. But today we want to talk about 10 additional shows that we rate highly and would recommend watching if you haven't seen them already. These will be listed in order of community popularity, going from the most obscure to the most popular at the end, and covering a wide range of genres. Number 1, Tada-kun Never Falls in Love. This is a slow burn romance set in the backdrop of when a photography nut becomes involved with a foreign exchange student by happenstance. Teresa decides to join the eclectic photography club at her new school, which brings her closer to Tada-kun. They develop feelings for each other while experiencing a slightly less than ordinary high school life, but when it is revealed that Teresa is not just an ordinary citizen of her country, their blossoming love is challenged by her obligations from home. The show has an overall soft and sweet vibe, and Tada is a calm, steady presence to help even out all of the other characters, and their friend group feels like people that you would want to spend time with. There are also multiple couples to root for, not just the main characters. I like that this is a romance where they don't use the drama of the two fighting or something as a conflict for the final arc, and instead focus more on the conflict of breaking down the barriers between their different stations in life. My favorite part of the show is when the group goes to the Fuji Five Lakes area for the photography camp, and while the gang is sleeping, waiting for the weather to clear, Tada and Teresa are able to talk one-on-one at the lake's edge. They really get to open up to each other here in one of their most meaningful conversations and express how they've been observing each other this whole time. And then the sky clears and we're treated to the beautiful backdrop of the stars against Mount Fuji at the same time that they both seem to come to terms with their feelings for each other. This episode was emotionally and artistically beautiful and the inspiration for me to visit Kawaguchiko myself. Though we didn't end up camping under the stars, we did rent a cozy cabin and get to see Mount Fuji from the pagoda and the ropeway. Number 2, Astra Lost in Space. The first episode and the final episode are both extended, so it's like watching a 14-episode show instead of a 12-episode show like it's marketed. But don't let the lighthearted attitude of the first half of episode 1 fool you. This is a survival drama. The show does a great job of fleshing out the characters' backstories and traumas that motivate them, and in the process of exploring space as they fight to get home, the problems they encounter are solved creatively and help the characters grow. Each character was really their own person and balanced the team by serving a purpose based off of their specific skill set. The underlying tension of the story culminates with not one but 3 surprise revelations, and it is a complete story with a satisfying ending contained within a single season, which I really appreciate.
There really aren't enough shows that do that.
It's interesting because I usually don't like space-related fiction, but the characters really drew me into this story and made the backdrop of space travel and exploration thrilling in its own way. Especially, for example, when they landed on the first planet after boarding the Astra, and you can see how excited everyone is to discover all the new plants and animals. And each planet they land on serves a unique backdrop for new conflicts and accomplishments.
My favorite episode is when they're on the planet with the bouncy mushroom trees, as it really kind of shows the whole team and group interacting with their specialties and actually getting to accomplish a goal together.
Trying to save her and trying to get all the food.
No, spoilers, stop it.
What? If you say her, you're playing the pronoun game and no one knows which girl it is. So...
How about you? What's your favorite episode? Or
No, it's the same episode. It's being on that planet.
okay.
Yeah. Because I think that it, even though a lot of people hadn't come out of their shell yet for the group, it was still like getting to see how they were responding to a new environment. And like you said, it was the first true amount of teamwork after getting out of the wasteland of space and into the ship. So.
Yeah, it's a good grounding point for the start of the show.
Mm-hmm. Number 3, The Apothecary Diaries. This is a Chinese imperial court drama told from the perspective of one of the girls working in the palace. Mao Mao shows us right from the start her unique worldview that shapes her personality that's not necessarily pessimism, but more like realism. She has a very analytical mind which gets her caught up in a lot of drama and ends up having her solving a lot of mysteries. One could say that she's too smart for her own good, as her critical thinking and knowledge of medicinal and poisonous items leads her to being assigned as a food taster. But even though she deals with hardships and setbacks not only before arriving at the palace but also in her palace life, she adopts an attitude of it can't be helped and doesn't let it get her down. Instead, Mao Mao is always forging ahead, and her merit earns her many useful allies around the palace. There's also the undertone of a budding romance between Mao Mao and Jinshi, and it's kind of fun that we're at the part in the story where she still hasn't acknowledged her feelings, but he's becoming aware of how much he cares for her and how important she is in his life now. And I wish it was already 2025 so that we had season 2 in our hands, because this one's really hard to wait for.
A fun show, good mystery detective kind of whodunit sometimes, but also just kind of figuring out the mysteries as she solves them.
And whodunit without technology, because this is still like, I don't even know what year they're trying to say it is, but yeah, it's not modern age. Number 4, Blue Period. This is a story about finding your passions later in life than your peers and pursuing them while you are considered to be behind the curve. But it's also a coming-of-age story about learning to be a better person and having empathy for others while not allowing other people's opinions to define you. It was refreshing watching Yaguchi learn the fundamentals of art and how to use art as a medium to express himself instead of him just already being good at it from the get-go. But his journey of self-discovery through art allows him to maintain motivation to learn the skills necessary to achieve his new dream of going to an art college. The storytelling is done in a way where it feels as though each new person he gets to know at his cram school teaches him not only something about art but also about himself and helps him grow as a person. The show also examines the immense stress that the characters are under, not only from college exams but also from their personal lives, and really digs into insecurities and self-confidence, making the show quite emotionally heavy.
Blue Period's just really good because of all the characters that are in it and how they're written and how they connect to each other and build upon each other's strengths and weaknesses.
It's also really nice to see the pieces of art that were created for the show. Like, the art itself is really nice. Not just like the art style of the show and the characters and everything, but like the pieces of art that they create in the show is really neat. Number 5, Kamisama Kiss. This is a reverse harem anime based loosely on aspects of Japanese folklore. Watching Nanami become embroiled in the world of yokai and having to learn how to be a land god has many fun and sometimes serious moments. But watching her break down Tomoe's rough exterior and help him heal from his past as their relationship grows is the best part of the show. Nanami and Tomoe embodied the grumpy sunshine romance trope perfectly. And I just love Tomoe. He's so surly, but also very competent, and Kitsune are my absolute favorite yokai. And we get to see so many different sides of him, from him being small to his wild Kitsune form to working as a familiar, which is fun. And even though he seems upset all the time, you can really tell how much he cares about Nanami. Well, I'm sad that the anime ended up skipping a lot of the manga material. I'm glad that they did at least make the effort to finish the show via the OVAs covering the ending story arc. And while you may see several parallels between this show and Inuyasha, Kamisama Kiss is definitely a separate experience worth watching in its own right.
It's fun to see all the unique scenarios that they come up with that she has to go through, being forced as a god, as a normal human, dealing with the weird intricacies of yokai.
The ways that she has to use to get around things because she's just a human. Number 6, 86. This show is deeply emotional and has amazing character and world building. This is not a mech show in the classic sense of humanoid robots duking it out with each other. Think more along the lines of advanced tanks instead. The show revolves around the brutalities of war in their world and unraveling the class system boundaries, as well as the mysteries behind the enemy robots. The fight sequences against the Legion are really well done, and the battle tactics and strategy being utilized was really interesting. Watching Lena work to earn the squad's trust and digging deeper into Shin's backstory was satisfying, but having Lena get to know everyone better also works against us as the viewer because this is still a war zone, and you never know which character is going to die. And the whole time the show leaves you wondering if Lena will ever see the squadron members in person or if there won't be a squad left at the end.
It's very well written as a split perspective, getting to know both sides and having more kind of knowledge of what's going on between the two.
Being the omniscient viewer.
Do you have a favorite section or character?
I mean, I'm just a Lena Shin shipper. You know?
I think the fireworks scene, when she ships the fireworks to them, was really moving and powerful.
Wasn't that the last time that, like, the core members were all still together, too?
Definitely close to, yeah.
I think that was right before a really big, pivotal battle. It's been too long since we've seen it.
And it's really cool seeing the parallels between the squad having fireworks and the fireworks in the capital city.
There were a lot of really beautiful handled moments. Everything about this show is amazing. I can't think of a single aspect that I would change, honestly. Number 7, Spice and Wolf. For this show, I'm speaking from my experience from watching the original 2008 series, but I will be watching the remake when it finishes airing, and I'm very excited. Holo is so intriguing to me as a god of harvest and being woven into the folklore of the area with her relationship to the wheat, and it's just so cool when we get to see her full wolf form as well. But when she's in her human form, she's still cool because she's wicked smart and sassy. The chemistry and banter between Holo and Lawrence gives the show a fun energy to bolster all of the talk of economics and trade tactics. And it's nice to watch them travel from town to town and get to know the local people in each area and sometimes get swept up in their troubles as they journey together to return Holo to her true home. The teasing and flirting between Holo and Lawrence has a very will they won't they quality to it that is enticing, and the pseudo-drama of having to keep Holo's wolf ears and tail hidden to protect her from discovery can also lead to higher stakes situations in the story. I'm interested to see how far the new adaptation will take us, and I'm hoping that this first season will breathe new life into the franchise and give us a sequel season in the future. This is where I was talking about how, with the original series, the opening theme song feels like it just so perfectly encapsulates the entire mood and energy and atmosphere of the show. It's sweeping and beautiful and haunting, and I downloaded it, I have it on my phone, I love it. It's one of those things where I feel like I hope that they match that energy with the new songs that they're picking and stuff like that. But the kinds of scenes that are the best for Spice and Wolf are the scenes just where Holo and Lawrence are talking to each other, usually when they're alone, because then they can both be their true selves, and they don't hide anything from each other, really. Their relationship is engaging. Number 8, Violet Evergarden. This is the story of the trauma a young woman has to overcome after fighting through a terrible war as a child soldier. Seeing Violet trying to put together a normal life and learn how to express herself by witnessing some of the deepest human emotions through her typing services was very moving. The show will pull at your heartstrings and tear ducts many times across the 13 episodes, 1 OVA, and 2 movies, but watching Violet heal and forge ahead into the future is worth it. Violet Evergarden is very atmospheric and the art is simply gorgeous, and even though Violet can come off as a passive main character and a little slow to change, you're still rooting for her and feeling for her the whole time. It's the kind of show that also gives you a little bit of the travel bug watching her go around to these different places to write letters for new clients. I'm also a sucker for her relationship with Gilbert, and the show perfectly captured the atmosphere of longing and sadness revolving around Violet's feelings for him, and I'm really glad that part of the storyline had an ending addressed in the final movie.
It's just really interesting to see how the show will unravel these people's stories through her experience of them trying to explain what letters they want to write to someone else.
It's almost like people having a therapy session to her, just from her being the kind of person that they can be open with, and Violet is a very calm presence, and so I think that a lot of the show is carried by her simply being who she is, so that these people feel like they can open up and express all of these deep feelings and sorrows and different things. Number 9, Parasyte. This is a sci-fi horror, but it's not so much a psychological horror as it is a gruesome body horror. Basically, aliens start taking over human bodies, but one of these aliens, Migi, fails to fully capture a human's brain and instead is trapped inside of their hand, and the human, Shinichi, is still his own independent entity. What ensues is Migi and Shinichi having to learn how to coexist and fight off the other parasites who deemed them a threat to the takeover efforts. There are some very excellent fight sequences, and this show has moments of being very thought-provoking regarding the human condition. Migi is so great because of the way he interacts with Shinichi, and a lot of his transformations, like when they're at home, can be pretty funny. I just find him endearing, and even though he starts out as rather clinical, Migi develops more of a human set of emotions and thought processes the more time he spends cohabitating inside Shinichi's body. And in an intriguing twist, Shinichi becomes more emotionless and cold as they spend more time stuck together.
Yeah, their dynamic's really cool, and the show does such a good job with all the fight scenes. And if you can make it through the first episode, that's probably the worst of it.
The first episode has the dog and the cannibalism and everything. Like, the first episode will be most likely the most gruesome examples that they will show you. I think there is one other nasty thing that happens throughout the show, but it's like, you know. There's also a certain thing to be said for, like, the longer you watch this show, the more you feel a little, like, desensitized to what's going on, because they establish it so much as this is the norm. This is how this world works.
Kind of like the characters.
Okay, number 10. Well, this is what I was picturing. I'd just be like, number 10. Yeah, that sequence from the opening song's going to play, and it's going to be so funny. Because it's 3 million people. The likelihood that someone watching this video hasn't seen One Punch Man is really low. So anyway, number 10. One Punch Man. This is a parody of the superhero genre that subverts expectations by asking what would happen if you were already the strongest person. Full of humor and great characters, this show ignores power scaling and high stakes, and yet keeps you engaged with Saitama's personality and his dynamics with the rest of the cast.
No, the show is just trying to figure out the power scaling of the enemies to be on his level.
Which never happens. I mean, he kind of does his own power scaling, if I remember correctly, where he'll be like, oh, what if I just flick this person? Will it still kill them?
Yeah, he's trying to find a good fight. He just can't.
And so he's bored out of his mind. The story is also confident enough to let the supporting characters outshine Saitama in various instances without the shift feeling too jarring. So overall, One Punch Man is a lighthearted and fun time. And I like Genos as a foil for Saitama because he's rather serious, and while Saitama does not experience much character development, Genos does evolve his abilities and fighting through his cyborg body upgrades and from gaining battle experience. It's also interesting to watch how the two of them approach issues very differently, and they have good comedic synergy together.
Yeah, it's fun to see how the fights escalate and what monster of the week's gonna come out to try and destroy the world this time.
And like meeting all the other heroes from the association is kind of fun because they created people with like very kind of silly powers, like the bicycling guy and the dude in the dog suit. So it's not like you're looking at superhero abilities that you've seen a million times. And that wraps up our top 10 highly recommended anime. Let us know if you've watched any of the shows from this list and what you thought of them.